I'm sorry, but there are times when a tragedy needs to be politicized. Things can go wrong anytime, disaster can strike anywhere. The whole point of politics and government is to create the conditions that try and shield people from the very worst. Take care of impacted communities afterward as quickly and efficiently as possible. We can do a good job or a bad job dealing with severe weather. We can plan for it or not. We can deny it or not. We can put resources towards those plans or take resources away from them. In the end, those are all political decisions. So when a tragedy does strike, we have to ask hard questions about the decisions leading up to and during that moment.
Chris Hayes from MSNBC there on the Texas flood disaster. It's Thursday, July 10th, 2025, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch. Rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Latest from the flood, CNN says the death toll has risen to 120 as the seventh day of the ordeal begins. 150 known missing remain in Kerr County, and at least a dozen are missing in other parts of Texas. A lot of talk about FEMA as a large-scale natural disaster plays out under an administration looking to cut funding for, well, just about everything but terrorizing Hispanic people. Also from CNN, it turns out that even in the current flood situation, while she's grandstanding for the cameras along with Governor Greg Abbott, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem apparently has a new policy requiring all FEMA contracts over $100,000 to be signed off on by her personally, which appears to have delayed the agency from even getting moving to Texas until Monday, 72 hours after the flood event, and clearly far too late to have made any difference in helping locate survivors. The Independent says that even once they got moving, under 100 staffers have been sent to Texas, an extraordinarily anemic effort dwarfed by the almost 2,000 personnel deployed by the state of Texas, and also dwarfed by the over 1,000 FEMA personnel sent into the wake of Hurricane Helene in the southeastern U.S. just last fall. Noem and her boss, Donald Trump, appear to be using Texas as an example of what U.S. states can expect from the federal government when disaster strikes, as long as they're in the driver's seat. The state's response is being called into question as well. Colleen de Guzman at the Texas Tribune says Kerrville Mayor Joe Herring responded to Governor Abbott's assertion that state assets, resources, and personnel had been deployed to Kerr County 2 days before the flood on Wednesday. The mayor says he was unaware of any of that, and it clearly didn't help just a whole lot. The Trib says the July 4th flood is already among the deadliest natural disasters in Texas history. Currently the second deadliest flood after a 1921 flood in San Antonio that killed 215 people. Given that the current number of missing is larger than the current death toll, it looks like that grim state record is likely to fall here. Even now, as the situation continues to unfold, the July 4th flood death toll is higher than the total number of flood-related deaths recorded across the entire country over the last 2 years. Finger-pointing continues locally in Kerr County, where it's now a discussion of whether the state of Texas fell short in funding emergency alert apparatus that likely would have made a huge difference, or whether the locals in Kerr didn't really want that help anyway. The AP says that over the past decade, both state and local agencies have failed repeatedly to secure about $1 million for a flood warning system in the area, despite repeated disasters, including fatal floods in 1987 and 2015. These efforts have stalled due to cost concerns, opposition to sirens, and a lack of coordinated funding. ABC says the Kerr County has just lately been trying again, and that just last month, the contract for a new flood warning system was signed, with a launch meeting planned for mid-July. The spend here was a pretty paltry $73,000 and was simply for a centralized dashboard that would allow Kerr County officials to follow stream flow and rainfall in one place. This is far short of sirens or anything having to do with direct alerts to people in harm's way. No surprise that the flood disaster will take a place on the agenda of Governor Abbott's special session, both due to its magnitude and as its utility as a distraction from a blatant Republican power grab in the form of a mid-decade redistricting scheme that's on the agenda as well. Eleanor Klibanoff and Alejandro Serrano at the Texas Tribune write that the session beginning July 21st will be jam-packed with conservative priorities, not the least of which will be an attempt to redraw Texas's congressional district map in order to fortify the slim majority that the Republicans currently hold in the U.S. House, ahead of the losses they clearly expect in 2026 under the extremely unpopular Trump regime, all under orders from Trump himself. and in spite of worry from some of the GOP's more thoughtful members that an overreach could occur, undermining the control that extensive gerrymandering has already given the Republican Party in Texas. One such thoughtful Republican told Politico, quote, "This is a political play fraught with tons of landmines that the Texas legislature and governor would never do but for requests from the outside," unquote. This redistricting scheme, designed to dilute Democratic influence in the solidly blue districts that naturally occur with the drawing of solidly red districts, would require drawing more red votes into those blue areas, which of course will make those red districts a little less red. Houston Public Media says Governor Abbott is citing a letter from the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division pointing to 4 Texas blue districts, ironically identifying them as having been drawn in an unconstitutionally racial manner. Let's remember they're part of a map that, just like everything else that's happened at the state level in Texas since the mid-90s, was produced by Texas Republicans. All carry non-white majorities and are currently or historically represented by non-white elected officials. Houston's Congressional District 9, represented by Congressman Al Green, a black Democrat and vocal critic of the president who has filed articles of impeachment against Trump multiple times, likely making his district an even more tempting target. Houston's CD 18, which as we well know is currently vacant following the death of Congressman Sylvester Turner last March, but has been represented for more than 50 years by a succession of black Democrats. Houston's CD 29 and Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, a Latina Democrat, and Fort Worth's CD 33, represented by Mark Beasy, a black Democrat. Reactions immediately from U.S. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, quote, "There are real questions about Governor Greg Abbott's failed leadership, lack of preparation, and the reckless decision not to bolster the early warning infrastructure in flood-prone communities. Instead of aggressively addressing the failures of his administration, Governor Abbott and shameless extremists are conspiring with Donald Trump and House Republicans to try to rig the election and disenfranchise millions of voters," unquote. Texas House Minority Leader Gene Wu, quote, "In the face of this unimaginable tragedy with nearly 200 Texans still missing, Governor Abbott's response to this crisis is a stunning betrayal. House Democrats welcome the opportunity to pass meaningful flood relief, but we will not allow this tragedy to be used as political cover for an extreme agenda that does nothing to help families get back on their feet," unquote. Anthony Gutierrez, executive director at Common Cause Texas, quote, "This is just about the president knowing he's going to be taking some embarrassing losses in the midterms and his administration trying to protect them from that by breaking up a bunch of black and brown communities in Texas to try to pick up a few seats," unquote. There's going to be way more to say about this, and at Progress Texas we'll be following closely, but make no mistake, this is an extraordinarily furious power grab that will be difficult to keep up with between a blatant, unjustified rigging of maps ahead of a key election and what's shaping up to be the deadliest flood in Texas history. There's no shortage of distraction from the rest of the agenda, which includes a further crackdown on abortion medication, legislation to shield police officers from accountability for abuse of duty, expansion of the Attorney General's purview to cook up and pursue claims of election fraud, yet another run at the bathroom bill, and of course, Dan's ban, the statewide near wholesale elimination of any product containing any amount of THC, which was vetoed by Governor Abbott just weeks ago under huge public pressure after having been rammed through the regular session by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. The weed thing is sure seeming quaint at this point. It's a full court press, y'all, and we're all going to have to be on our toes to follow it and resist it. Our mission at Progress Texas is to counter the conservative disinformation machine, which is funded by oil and tech billionaires and religious right-wing activist groups, all while fact-based independent media outlets increasingly face funding threats. While access to those outlets is frequently free, as it is here at Progress Texas, it does take listener support to keep fact-based independent media going. If you've come to appreciate what we do at Progress Texas, now more than ever, we could use your support as a monthly contributor, and no amount is too small. Go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to Lauren Blanton, Jesse Bowie, and Roxanne Boyd, all of whom have joined the team lately. We appreciate all of y'all very much. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Thursday, July 10th, 2025. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is a nonprofit, rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.